or when common sense is not common. Hey everyone, welcome back to Love, Dating and Marriage Relationships with me, where we share, ask and answer relationship questions to help you build a godly and intentional relationship. Now, today's question is, what happens during ever after? Now, you know those fairy tale books that you read or the fairy tale movies that you watch where they say both couples and they lived happily ever after. What exactly happens during that ever after, which no one really seems to talk about? That's what we're going to be discussing today. So keep on watching. So I recently watched a new mini-series titled During Ever After by Laju Iren. It's a beautiful love story about two people on their journey to happily ever after, and they have to work together to make their marriage work. Now in this mini-series, they try to show us what exactly happens or what can happen, I guess, during ever after, and I'm going to try to give you my take on it and just a few things that I would have loved to see in the mini-series as well. The first thing that got my attention is that nothing grows without effort. Now, sometimes you hear of a 48-hour marriage, a 6-month marriage, or a 2-year marriage, and so on, that has failed because probably one party was unfaithful, one party was abusive, or the husband, couldn't provide for the family, or, just those really big issues. But sometimes it could be like the simplest of things, and it could also be nothing. I love the way Laju put it. She said the art or skill of doing nothing is refusing to make effort because you've become over familiar with your spouse, or you've put in a lot of effort in the past and it's been thrown in your face. Imagine this: if I ask you what the opposite of love is, your easiest and most direct response would be hate. But have you ever thought about indifference? Now, you don't necessarily have to hate your husband, hate your wife, but you see that place of indifference is surely a place you don't want to be. It's a place I won't even wish my enemy to be. With indifference, you might be faithful. You don't have to be cheating. You don't have to be abusive. You can be present in the home, but you're just unintentional about the marriage. You're just unintentional about your spouse, and finally you just don't care. Now notice I didn't say all of a sudden you don't care, because it's not all of a sudden. Nothing grows without effort. So you would have in the past been putting in some kind of little effort that would eventually grow to that indifference, and then finally you just can't be asked anymore. With indifference, the enemy wants to make us believe that even though we're not necessarily holding the steering wheel of a car, but we're present in the car, we're not necessarily manning the goalpost as a goalkeeper, but you're somewhere on the field. You're not necessarily out of the house. You're not necessarily doing all those big, terrible stuff, but you're present in the house. Then everything will be okay. This is a trap of the enemy. And it's really scary what the enemy can do with indifference, which may seem like nothing to you and I. It's when those terrible seeds, those efforts that I said you would have been putting in the past, where they begin to germinate and bear fruits that you and I did not sign up for. So indifference to your spouse, indifference to your marriage is surely a terrible place to be in. It's like a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. The second thing is the importance of a spiritual mentor, a wise counsel, someone to hold you accountable. In this mini-series, the husband spoke to the pastor during this issue in the marriage. The pastor was dishing out nuggets of wisdom. I was taking notes. I really do encourage you to go and watch it. The wife, on the other hand, was also speaking to her sister. There was someone important for each of them while they were both facing this crisis, this issue in the marriage. There was someone there to knock some sense back, into their heads. So yeah, dealing with issues like this by yourself can sometimes be beyond you. So you definitely need that support system that you can trust to always check you when you're acting funny, or you just, don't seem to see yourself clearly in the mirror. The final thing is the reminder of how it takes two people to make a marriage work, but it takes one person to lead by example. I'm just going to pause so that you can take that in. See, I find that the best time to actually show love is when it is not necessarily comfortable for you, because that's when the enemy would expect you not to love. I say this all the time, and even I myself fall short sometimes, and I'm grateful for the lessons that I learn as I get back on my feet. I mentioned in my previous video that the expectation of the performance of this love that we profess as Christians can be taken from examples of how Christ loves the church being you and I. I think it's funny how choosing or deciding to change personally, to lead by example, to love regardless, can make a whole lot of difference. So forget the expectations you have of the other person, forget the expectations you have on your spouse to do certain things. You just choose to lead by example. You just choose love, because that is what God would want you to do. I understand that you're hurting, you feel wronged, and you don't want to talk about it because you don't necessarily want to come off as a nag, or you don't want it to seem like you have issues with everything. But please understand that your spouse may not necessarily know everything without being told. So instead of sitting in your own little corner playing out 1,000,001 scenarios in your head, I beg you, please just talk, just communicate with your spouse, because surely you can do this without both being disrespectful to each other. Remember, no one is perfect, and you're communicating so that you can understand each other. I don't know about anyone else, but I always get clarity when I communicate. It actually makes me so glad when I get to do that, because it makes a whole lot of difference to my perspective. So you should try it too. The other thing is, it takes work to make a marriage succeed and thrive. And guess what? The amount of work may not necessarily be the same for every marriage, because we're all different individuals. Now, if there's any good or important thing that you know your marriage or your relationship is lacking, you can learn it, you can grow it, you can study it, and then you can act on it. You put in a lot of effort to other areas of your life, so you should be willing and intentional to put in that required effort as well in your marriage, regardless of whether you've been married for just 6 months, 2 years, and so on. Now, very quickly, 2 things that I would have loved to see more of. One is the importance of prayer. I think a lot of people underestimate what prayer can do and how God is as interested in our marriage relationships like everything else. Know that you're not necessarily praying for a sign, but to see and know God's face concerning that particular situation. Fair enough, you might say some of these issues, some of these things are common sense, but when common sense is not common, and you know that the enemy is out to destroy marriages, then you will know that only God can help you to make wise decisions. The second thing I would have loved to see is practical ways to deal with conflict or unspoken expectations, because sometimes you find that people can't even place their finger on what the issue is, talk less of finding a solution. And at the same time, some people have tried different methods, they've done different things, and it just isn't working. So I think showing that practical way of walking through conflict, showing more of it, I suppose, could be helpful. At the same time, I do understand that it is a mini series with just 3 episodes, so every issue that could come up in a marriage relationship obviously cannot be addressed. That being said, this mini series had a clear, powerful and beautiful message. It is amazing what can happen to your marriage when you choose to love, when you choose to be intentional. So when things go wrong, I encourage you to step up in the place of prayer, get good counsel, and make a move in the right direction. And of course, before I end this video, to my 100+ subscribers, you deserve some homemade cake and some homemade ice cream. Thank you so much for watching, for subscribing, for engaging with my content, and also for sharing with others. The ministry is moving, and I choose to be grateful for every step of the way, whether big or small. So yeah, thanks guys. I hope you continue to enjoy more of what will be coming from this channel, and I pray that it continues to bless you and yours as much as I'm grateful to be able to share and serve. I'm also grateful to be able to learn so many things and also hold myself accountable as well. Right, so if you found this video helpful and insightful, let me know by liking this video. Share your thoughts in the comments so I can read them. You also want to share this video with other people, and if you haven't subscribed as well, please hit the subscribe button and also hit the notification bell so you know whenever I post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I encourage you to live an intentional life.